So for the longest time, 1080p has been the standard for almost all PC and console gamers. If you can't play a game at 1080p, it really isn't worth playing at all. I mean, am I right? But that's in the past. More and more people want to be able to play their games at something like 1440p or even 4K. If you have a beefy enough gaming PC, you can play games at super high resolutions and I don't know, even with like multiple monitors. And if you have 2 or 3 monitors and you can play in 1440p ultra wide, you know, more power to you. But it requires a lot of power, a lot of computing power, a very powerful graphics processor. So what can you get for $820-ish? Well, I say you can get a very powerful 1440p gaming rig that can play almost any game you throw at it at least 60 FPS. Don't believe me? Let me show you my rig. So yes, I've been listening to a lot of the comments, and many people who watch our videos in particular don't live in either the United States or Canada. So I've found that a lot of PC parts tend to be more expensive, especially the newer PC parts, particularly the new Intel Skylake lineup. Skylake processors in countries like Germany and England tend to be, well, at least $60 to $80 more than they are in the States. So, you know, that kind of sucks. So what I decided to do was build a Haswell-based rig, of which most processors are generally more affordable than the Skylake counterparts, except for maybe in the US where you can get an i5-6400 for about the same price as an i5-4460. But in other cases around the world, that might not be true. So what I did was purchase an i5-4460, you know, standard 3.2 gigahertz with a 3.4 gigahertz turbo boost quad-core processor with 6 megabytes of L3 cache, and paired it with an AMD R9 380 4GB Sapphire graphics card. In addition, I've thrown in 2 4GB sticks of Kingston HyperX DDR3 clocked at 1866 MHz. I've thrown in a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo, just, you know, for the heck of it, and also because I hate the stock Intel cooler. And to kind of wrap things up, I purchased an ASRock Extreme4 LGA 1150 motherboard, you know, just for overkill's sake. So you could purchase a cheaper motherboard than this and certainly bring down the price, but if you ever feel the need to upgrade to, say, a 4690K or a 4790K, that certainly is available to you, and you will be able to overclock, obviously, because it's a Z97 motherboard. And I also like the nice little Dr. Debug addition down at the bottom. That's pretty cool. I mean, when I first booted up the computer, I was getting an error code, and it was nice to have Dr. Debug there to tell me what was wrong. It was actually my Wi-Fi PCI Express card. I pulled that thing out and then rebooted it, and it ended up booting just fine. So it was nice to have that little, I guess, notifier there. If I didn't have Dr. Debug, I don't know what I would have done. Just started pulling stuff out until something worked. So anyway, I put together a series of 4 gaming benchmarks to help you decide if you think that purchasing a Haswell i5 and an R9 380 4GB graphics card is a sweet little combo for you if you're interested in gaming at 1440p or in an ultra-wide 1080p format. Either of those are, you know, fairly similar. It's going to take more processing power to run at full 1440p, but if you're interested in gaming in ultra-wide 1080p at 2560 by 1080, that's also an option as well. Also, if you're looking for a, you know, more up-to-date, newer PC, you could, you know, replace this Core i5-4460 and the Z97 motherboard with, I don't know, maybe an i5-6500 or equivalent, and, you know, maybe like an H170 or Z170 motherboard. Even a B150 will do just fine if you're not looking to upgrade in the future or overclock at any point. Thanks, Intel, for locking that base clock method. Appreciate it. So, if you're a Dying Light fan, look for around 79 to 80-ish FPS at 1080p on average, and almost right at 60 FPS at 1440p. Keep in mind that we've maxed everything out and only turned off that annoying blur effect. I think it's annoying, you may not, but I always turn that off. And also MSAA, just because that completely murders almost any graphics card on the market. Now, if you're not a zombie fan, maybe you're a Dirt Rally fan. Maybe you like to race cars on your gaming PC. So we threw this one in there and we achieved about 78 FPS, so about the same as Dying Light. And then in 1440p, we reached 64 to 65 FPS on average. Our maxes and minimums were also fairly consistent. Now, just for giggles, I'm sure this won't apply to all of you, but I think most of you are at least somewhat curious as to how well this game plays Minecraft. So, of course, we could max everything out in Minecraft, and we did that. We played it at 1080p and at 1440p, and whew, so our average frame rate was about 316 in 1440p. It only jumped up about 40 FPS in 1080p, but that's besides the point. This game is pretty much playable at anything, including 4K, I assume. We also achieved a max FPS of 524 in 1080p and 498 in 1440p. That's not too bad. So if you recall from one of our previous Core i5 Skylake gaming PCs, we were able to achieve an average FPS of about 100. In this case, we did lose about 15 FPS on the average, but you know, that could be because of a number of factors, including but not limited to our faster DDR4 RAM and just the newer 14nm Skylake architecture versus the 22nm Haswell architecture. So there's not much you can do there, but I would say that 83 FPS at 1080p is still very, very playable, especially if you only have a 60 Hz monitor, in which case you'll only see 60 frames per second regardless. Now, if you're looking to play something like GTA 5 in 1440p, you will definitely notice an FPS cut from 1080p, but I would say that 58, 59 FPS is still pretty darn good for an R9 380 and well, pretty much the cheapest i5 that you can buy from Intel at this point. 59 FPS is very good for the average. I would like to note, however, if you take a look at the minimums, the minimum in 1080p was 69 FPS, whereas the minimum in 1440p dropped all the way down to 31. So now what this basically says is that 1440p is just much more taxing on both the GPU and the CPU at this high of a resolution. There are just so many more pixels to have to render per second. It's just more taxing. So you will see sharper frame dips when you approach 4K in a rig like this. I wouldn't recommend playing anything in 4K with this rig, but if you, I don't know, want to, I guess you could play Minecraft at 4K or something like that. But if you're wanting to play something very CPU intensive like Grand Theft Auto 5 at 4K, I recommend a very powerful i5, perhaps even an overclocked i5, or just an i7. And pair that with at least an R9 380, but I would recommend an R9 390 or something like a GTX 970 on NVIDIA's side. Keep in mind though, you don't have to purchase an expensive motherboard like I did. You don't need a Z97 motherboard to run an i5 4460. I mean, it kind of is crazy in a way. I just like having that option if I ever need it to replace that CPU with one that is overclockable, an Intel K CPU. But most people aren't looking forward to doing that. They just purchase a PC and that's what they're assuming they're going to be stuck with for a while. So you could definitely replace the Z97 with something like an H81 for 50, 60 bucks and put that money towards a better graphics card, and who knows, maybe even achieve higher frame rates than I was able to in this $800 rig for a similar $800 rig. Other factors that work into that $800 price tag include the Corsair Carbide 400C, which was a $100 computer case. You could certainly cut that in half at least to about 50 bucks if you want a cheaper computer case. And like I said, you can save money on a cheaper motherboard as well. You won't have as many features as the Z97 Extreme will, but you're going to have a motherboard and you're going to have, you know, a processor and a really, really good graphics card if you plan on reallocating that money somewhere else to achieve higher frames per second. And if that's all that matters to you, by all means, crush this PC in games. So share the knowledge, put those PC part picker links in the comments below, let people know what you were able to do for $800-ish. Thanks everyone for watching. Be sure to like the video if you liked it, dislike the video if you disliked it. Let me know in the comments below what you would like to see next, what you'd like to see improved, and be sure to subscribe for more, because there will be more. I like building computers, and that's really all you need to know about that. This is Science Studio. Thanks for learning with this.